vehicle. Vehicle.
Welcome to the Double Dribble Podcast with Dubin and Dakil. That's Jared Dubin, author of Last Night in Basketball. I'm Mo Dakil. Make sure you're checking out my videos with Offside. We're building something there, so make sure you come in to check that stuff out. And you might have noticed if you're watching on YouTube, we have a third member today on the Double Dribble. We are joined by special guest Sean Highkin. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm good. Is this the first time you guys have had a third person? Since you started this? Wow.
It is.
It's a big deal.
By the way, for those of you that don't know, which, like, classic Mo, not nailing the intro, Sean writes for the Rose Garden Report, a publication about the Portland Trailblazers, covers the Blazers as well as anybody covers any team in the league, and we're bringing him on because the Blazers got sold. Unfortunately, not to me and Mo.
Sean, that's where we want to start, actually. Why did our bid not succeed? Like, where did we fall short?
Just for context, our bid was gimme.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually funny. There was this group there was like this website that got put up by some like local, I guess, fan group that was like trying to crowdfund a bid for the Blazers, and they got like $1.4 million in pledged. I don't think anybody actually like exchanged money, but they got like $1.4 million in pledged bids.
That's pretty surprising.
Which
1.4 is a lot.
It's a lot, but it's also like it's like
a whole.
It's like half of. It's like I think the minimum amount of a stake that somebody can get in an NBA team is like 0.5%, which for a team that just sold for $4.25 billion, that means that the minimum stake is like 20 or 30 million. I think I can't do math off the top of my head. So that group almost got to like 1/20th of the minimum amount of stake that you can have just as a ceremonial thing. So I don't know. I mean, I believe in you. Like, next time a team goes up for sale, you guys can just like grind, get back in the lab, and just keep trying.
I mean, it's the same offer for every team. Give me. Just put in our. Just give us the keys. We're good.
Yeah. Next time, maybe a little bit of money, but probably not.
Probably not 4.25 billion.
Don't you promise that money? I'm not giving them $20. Give me. Sean, jokes aside, the team did get sold to Tom Dundon, owner of the Carolina Hurricanes. I always want to say Panthers for some reason when I'm talking about it. But, for those that don't know, the NHL team basically in Carolina. Sean, what was your first reaction? Like, this was one of those things where this team has been kind of like up for sale for a while. There was no real like news, at least nationwide. You're based in Oregon, you're in Portland with the Rose Report. Please, like, what was going on? Like, were you hearing a lot of names, or did this come out of nowhere for you?
Well, the team has only actually been for sale for 3 months. So Paul Allen died in 2018, and it's kind of been known since then that eventually the team was going to get sold because it was in his will that eventually all of his assets are going to have to be sold and the money was going to go to whatever his various charitable ventures are. So we all kind of knew at some point, but a few years ago, Phil Knight put in an offer to buy the team, was rejected, and in a very rare statement at the time, Jody Allen, who's his sister, who's been basically overseeing his trust since he died, put out a statement that said that these types of estates could take 10 to 20 years to fully get settled. So that was kind of her way of saying 3 years ago that the team wasn't going to get sold anytime soon. So they officially put the team up for sale. They made the announcement that they were starting the formal sales process of finding a buyer and negotiating in May. So it's really only been 3 months that the team has actually been for sale, even though everybody has known for years that it was going to get sold at some point. And at the time, when they put out the announcement, they said in the announcement that the sale process was going to continue into the 2025-26 season. And, I had kind of been told also like 9 to 12 months was sort of the timeline for how long it's going to take. And that still could be how long it takes, because all there is right now, like, the team has not actually been sold yet. They have an agreement in place, a tentative agreement with this group that's led by Tom Dundon, the owner of the Hurricanes, with a couple of other investors. And they have an agreement, like, on the broad terms. They're still negotiating the actual, like, real contract between, his lawyers, their lawyers, the investment bankers, all that stuff. And then it has to get approved by the Board of Governors, and then the sale's going to close. And as we just saw with the Celtics, that took 9 months, or it took a long time for that stuff to close. So right now, like, all there is like a sale agreement. But to answer your question, I mean, no, this guy was not on my radar at all. And really, there was no news, even locally, even for someone like me who was, like, trying to be plugged into this and checking on it. Like, I would ask people, like, at the highest levels of the organization below ownership if they knew anything that was going on, and they all said no. Like, Jody and Bert were just keeping everybody in the organization in the dark, and their bankers and their lawyers were working through it, and they were talking about it, and everybody on both the basketball ops side and the business ops side was just kind of told, hey, keep doing what you're doing, don't worry about, we're dealing with the sale, don't worry about, like, you can't spend money, you can't do this, you can't, and we saw with, some of the stuff and when I first, it was funny, when the team got put up for sale in May, that was actually the week I was in Chicago for the Combine. And so I was talking to a bunch of, like, Blazers front office folks who were there that week for the Combine, who, they all found out about that the team was going to be put up for sale when it got announced publicly. So they haven't really been doing, but they also, like, they consistently said to me, like, ownership just told us when they told us they were selling the team, they told us it was business as usual. You can't worry about, like, you can't spend money on salary, you can't spend money on staff. And then you saw this offseason, they took on pretty significant long-term money with that Drew Holiday for Anthony Simons trade. They signed Damian Lillard to a 3-year deal for essentially the full mid-level exception. And kind of behind the scenes, they pretty significantly upgraded Chauncey Billups' coaching staff. So when you heard them, at the time saying, oh yeah, ownership told us it's all business as usual, it's all status quo, your first reaction is like, yeah, okay, you're supposed to tell me that. But then you saw what they've actually done this summer, and it actually has been pretty status quo, and they've been spending money, and they've been taking on money and operating kind of as normal while this has been going on behind the scenes. I did not expect them to find a buyer this quickly, because remember, it took the Celtics 9 months. They announced it in June that the team was for sale last year, and then I think in March or February of this year was when they announced who was going to buy the team. So I figured we wouldn't even have a buyer announced or known until the All-Star break around then. And so I was not at all expecting them to have something this soon. And no, this guy was not on my radar at all. I had kind of been hearing a few other names of, like, maybe this guy's interested, maybe this group is interested, but it was all, like, secondhand, third-hand stuff that I never really felt comfortable reporting, and there was nothing to do with this guy. So, no, this was a total surprise to me.
I was about to compare it to the Celtics, because the Celtics did something similar last year where they took on a bunch of money and tried to get a lot better when they were, like, just going up for sale. And obviously the Blazers then did that too. I wonder how much that helps raise the valuation. Probably not that much, considering all the other factors that go into it. But
it's Hans and Yang, guys. That's what raised the valuation.
I think these teams are just worth what they're worth. I don't think what the roster looks like is really. And I mean, I realize there's been a lot of, like, I do think that, like, I'll put it this way, and I know that there's been a lot of, like, ever since they drafted Young Hansen, there's been some, talk and speculation about, like, did they draft him for basketball reasons, or did they draft him because he's going to get everybody in China watching the Blazers while the team is for sale? I don't think the interest from China hurt their value, but I don't think that's why they did it, and I don't think that's, I don't think it boosted it enough to make that be the reason why they did. And honestly, same thing with the Dame thing. Like, obviously that's, like, a thing that fans are excited about right now, with Dame coming back, but if you're spending multiple billions of dollars on an NBA team, you're not doing it because of what their roster or their payroll looks like right now. You're doing it as, like, a 20 or 30 year investment or more.
Mm-hmm. And you're not doing it because of what ticket sales might look like in 2 years.
Exactly.
Because the guy who you just re-signed is not going to be able to play.
Right, and it's like there's a whole, like, there's a real estate play there too. Like, there's already kind of been some signaling that once this guy gets in officially, he's going to start talking with the city and with the state about funding for a new arena. Like, Adam Silver kind of telegraphed that at the Board of Governors press conference, that, that was something that was going to have to happen at some point. I am personally, that's obviously, since they announced the team was going to be for sale, that's been a thing that people here locally are worried about. It's like, oh, is the team going to move? I am, like, almost completely unworried about that. I think that's just, kind of the standard playbook of like, oh, the team could move to Seattle if you don't pay for a new arena, and then they're going to get the new arena. Because that's how this stuff always works. But that's, and then there's like all this area around the Moda Center where, like, if they build a new arena on that campus, there's like property that you can develop. So if you're buying a team, it's a real estate play as well as just the basketball part of it.
I think we've seen a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
But there's always a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's always the real estate play kind of involved in all of these things.
Oh, it's what he did. It's what he did with the Hurricanes too. Because remember, like, he buys the Hurricanes. He gets this, and I'm still kind of doing research and learning about kind of how everything went there. He got the city of Raleigh to approve a $300 million funding plan for a big renovation to their arena that locked them into a lease that I believe runs now through 2044. And then he's spending about $800 million of his own money on, redeveloping that area around their arena and building stuff around it. So I kind of, whether it's like a huge renovation to the Moda Center, which a lot of people here locally have been talking about, and the Blazers kind of already had a plan in place for before this sale happened. Whether it's that or whether it's building an entirely new arena, like, it seems like this is just kind of the playbook is like, okay, this new owner is going to come in. Mm-hmm. He's going to see what he can get away with as far as getting the city and the state to foot the bill for a new arena, see kind of how that shakes out, how much they're willing to do, and then kind of go from there.
What's your feel like? The thing with, let's just kind of look at it more on the basketball side, because I don't think a lot of the real estate planning and things, I think, probably drives more people nuts in terms of our audience.
Sure.
What's your view of it? Because, like, he turned the Hurricanes from, like, team that does not win, does not go to the playoffs, into regular playoff teams. Like, he's a guy that wants to win. Jonathan Quick wrote in his not Jonathan Quick. That's the hockey goaltender. See,
we got hockey on the brain because we
start talking hockey. All of a sudden, I'm thinking old LA Kings goaltender.
Jonathan Quick is a hockey player that I've heard of, which is not a long list.
Well, no, he won a Stanley Cup here in LA, so I will always remember
on the Rangers.
Jonathan Quick. Yeah, he is now, right? Is that where he went? It was heartbreaking when he got traded in LA. Okay, I've took us way off course. When Jason Quick wrote in his article at The Athletic, like, this dude's all about swagger. Like, he's coming in to win. There was, he would have tried to make a run at Luka Doncic, and all of that stuff. Like, is there a level of excitement when fans are hearing that? Like, okay, like, I never viewed the Blazers as cheap. Maybe not overly expensive and what, but I've never viewed them as, like, under Paul Allen, that's a cheap ownership group.
Right.
Where, so it's like, I'm curious if that's something, like, are fans kind of excited with the prospect of, like, this dude's coming in and going to try to win a championship?
Well, I think a lot of that stuff is just kind of whenever somebody buys a team, that's going to be what they're saying, and that's going to be what they want to put out there because they want to get the fans on their side and get people excited. I will say that there is a lot of excitement about it locally just because people have wanted the Paul Allen estate to sell the team for several years, and there's a lot of fan, I guess, negativity towards Jody Allen. Some of that I think is fair, some of it is not, but, like, there's been a widespread kind of belief among the fan base that, she's not engaged, she doesn't care about, which I don't think a lot of that is accurate based on, people I've talked to in the organization who talk about, how hands-on she actually is and how supportive she actually is. But there's been this thought since Paul Allen died that the organization was just kind of rudderless and just didn't have a direction, that because everybody knew that eventually, because it said that in his will, the team was going to have to be sold. And so even, if she did a fine job running the team in the interim, that was never going to be a permanent solution. And so I think now that we have, news of this is the guy that, pending all the, approvals and stuff, this is the guy that's going to buy it. I think a lot of people locally are, I would say, cautiously optimistic. I think people are going to be fully bought in once the stuff gets figured out with the arena, so that people can calm down about like the team moving to Seattle, which, certain local, media folks here have kind of figured out as an easy way to get people riled up. And that's why it kind of gets talked about. But, once that gets sorted out, I think people are going to be all in. But I think overall, yeah, to your point, Mo, you look at the track, and I'll fully admit, I don't really know anything about hockey, but like I've looked at like what the track record is of the Hurricanes. They've made the playoffs every year since this guy took over in 2018. It seems like he's invested a lot in the fan experience stuff, and he is kind of a creative roster decision. The thing I'm really curious about once it comes in, or once he actually comes in, which I would expect to be probably closer to the end of this coming season or next offseason. It's going to be pretty status quo this year while, the paperwork and stuff gets all figured out. But from everything I've been able to read about Tom Dundon, he seems like he's a pretty analytically driven and data-driven and creative thinker type of guy as far as like the roster decisions and all that type of stuff. And I think that that's a pretty, good alignment with the way that Joe Cronin and his front office staff have approached things anyway. So I wonder if, your thought is always like, oh, a new owner comes in, he's going to want to bring in his own GM, bring in his own coach, completely shake things up. From what I know of what this guy, philosophy-wise, like how he approaches things, it's not that different from the way the current front office and the current coaching staff are wired. So I wonder if there's going to be some sort of alignment there from the beginning. I honestly don't know either way, because like I've never talked to Tom Dundon. I don't know, I don't know the guy personally at all. But just based on reading what I don't know if necessarily it's going to be a situation where the guy comes in and completely shakes up everything in the organization.
Yeah, the new owner syndrome stuff is where I was going to go next. Because, Mo brought up earlier on that he had to stop himself from calling it the Carolina Panthers.
That's been like the absolute worst.
Yeah, David Tepper, but is similarly like known as like he's like a hedge fund guy, like very analytically driven.
Sure.
To come in and do things like, we're going to, revolutionize the way we're going to do things analytically with the Carolina Panthers, and we're going to be the most forward-thinking front office and organization that there is. And he came in and, shook a lot of stuff up, and that organization has been pretty rudderless.
Mm-hmm.
From what I understand with the Hurricanes, like basically they just hired a really good GM and a really good coach, and have just been good ever since. I talked to my brother about it a little bit because he's a big hockey fan, and I know that they've like played against the Rangers in the playoffs. So if they just say, we have the right coach and we have the right GM, and we're just going to keep the shit moving forward, or let's say they decide it doesn't actually fit, it seems like he's the kind of guy who's just going to let whoever is in charge do what they do.
Right.
And that at least would be an improvement on some of the new owner syndrome stuff that you normally have. Like we're still seeing with the Suns, like we're still seeing with the Kings. Like the biggest downside fears are huge and can last a long time, even with an owner that seems like he's going to be smart and get it.
Yeah, and I think a thing that's important to note, and obviously any new owner that comes in, it would be if he decides he wants to go in a different direction, it's nothing to, pay out a couple of people's contracts to make that change. But I think it is important to bring up that at the end of this past season, after the Blazers went 23-18 over the second half of the season and kind of had this unexpected play-in push, Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups both got contract extensions. And then over the summer, they spent pretty significantly to upgrade Chauncey's coaching staff and brought in, some real names on that staff, made some real investment there. So I think, whether this guy comes in and has his own vision or not, I think there is, based on what is already there and what has kind of already been put in place this summer before the sale even got finalized, I think there is a thought that, like, things are on the right track right now after a couple of years where that was very much not the case, and, just given, the way that the last season ended and, some of the improvements that they thought that different guys made and that Chauncey made as a coach and all of that stuff. So I don't know if it's necessarily a situation where a team is just dying for a new owner to come in and just clean house. I don't know if they necessarily need that, but given what everything we've seen about new owner syndrome and all that stuff, I think it's certainly not off the table that something like that could happen. But again, I think this season coming up is mostly going to just not really have any of this stuff involved because it's going to take several months for the sale to get approved by the board and for everything to get vetted. And it probably won't be until closer to the offseason next year that he's officially in charge and then any of these decisions are going to be made.
I do think it helps somewhat, by the way, that he already owns a team. Mm-hmm. Like, we just saw this, like, with the Commanders and Josh Harris, who owns the Sixers and the Devils. Like, when you've already done it and gotten your new owner stuff out of your system, maybe, then it's a lot easier to not, yeah, you
sure.
hope, but it's a lot easier to not fall victim to that kind of thing when, you've already owned a team in a different sport for a while.
Let's kind of go a little bit away from owner stuff right now, because I'm actually pretty high on the Blazers next season. I think they have a legitimate chance to be a play-in team. I think their second half of the season was real.
So do they. They think that too,
as they should. To be honest, I think there's a lot of stuff that they have going in there. What's your view of it? How do you feel of it? Do you feel like we've seen this before? We've seen this story before where teams have a great second half of the season and still suck next season, right? We've seen this before, and we've seen it the other way around, where it's you look at the Houston Rockets as an example, who pushed for a playing spot, didn't get it. Next year, jumped to number 2. Everybody in Portland, relax. I don't think you're going to be a number 2 seed next year, but in that sense, we're looking at that stuff. There's a legitimate chance of a jump there, and I think we saw it sort of at the end of last season. What's your view? You see this team more than either of us have in terms of anything else. What's your viewpoint?
I think the defense is pretty legit, and it's only going to get better with them adding Drew Holiday. So that part of it, I think, and a lot of the success they had the second half of the season last year was because their defense went from bottom 3 in the league in the first half of the season to top 3. And you look at the leap that Tumani Kamara took, and how well him and Denny Avdia played together, and how good Donovan Clingan was on that end already as a rookie. The defense, I think, is pretty legit. The offense, I don't know. And I think it was absolutely the right decision to move on from Anthony Simons. I think that probably with the other young guards that they have, it was probably not going to be a long-term fit. But he was the one guy on this roster that can get you a bucket if you need a bucket. And now I don't really is Shaedon Sharpe going to step in and really fill that role, on a night-to-night basis? He has the talent to do it, but is he going to be able to do it consistently? That's kind of been the story of his career. Jeremy Grant, who is still here and is probably still going to be here, because I don't know if that contract is something.
It's the dumbest contract given. This is how I view that contract. It was the dumbest contract that was given in that free agency. We could move on.
I think they did it as a last ditch thing to try to keep Dame from requesting a trade, and then Dame requested a trade 24 hours after they agreed to that contract,
which makes it dumber.
No, I don't. Yeah, that I think they might just be stuck with that one. But it's Jeremy had kind of a down year last year. He had one of the worst years of his career, but if he, is he going to be able to kind of have a bounce back year? I don't know if he's going to be starting or not. I don't think he should be starting, but that's another guy that at least we know can score. So maybe that's something that can help. The offense is the thing I still have a lot of questions about. But when you look at how solid they are defensively, and I also, fans still feel however they feel about him, but I genuinely think Chauncey Billups grew as a coach last year, and I think I don't think it was crazy that they gave him that extension and decided that he is the guy moving forward. And, he still has the respect of everybody. And it seems like all the defensive principles that he's been teaching have kind of, have stuck and have, been things that guys have responded to. To me, the real swing is what happens with Scoot. And Scoot is going to have an opportunity this year because they traded away Simons. I think Scoot is going to start opening night alongside Drew. That's just a guess. That's not sourced, but that would just be my guess of how it works, is that the two starting guards on opening night are Scoot and Drew. But Scoot, he had a pretty rough rookie season after being picked third overall and basically them drafting him being the reason that Dame ended up requesting a trade. But he had enough, I think, improvement and consistent improvement the second half of last season that people are pretty high on, what he's going to be able to do this year and that maybe that leap is coming. And if not, to like the all-star level or to like the franchise point guard level that he was sold at as when they drafted him, because I don't know if that's really in the cards for him at this point. But I think they saw enough improvement the second half of the season that they feel good about like where he's at. But if he makes that leap, and now it's like, okay, you have that guard that's going to set all these other guys up and get other guys easier shots, that I think is going to be the thing that swings whether this is a legitimate play-in, playoff team, or it's kind of like what it was last season where it's like, hey, they show some stuff, but it's still like a 35-36 win team.
Yep.
There was like a 2 or 3 week stretch last year where he did look like a facsimile of the guy that people sold him as coming into the draft, where it was like really using the speed to get into the open court, really using that leverage to get downhill and find guys off the dribble and spot guys in the corners or off the roll or things like that. And he's thickly built and should be able to finish better at the rim than he has over the first couple of years of his career. But I do think, like, even if he becomes maybe not the best version of himself, but if he becomes, like the 75th percentile version of himself, this is still a team that probably has to succeed. Like, Mo, you brought up the Rockets earlier. They probably have to succeed like the Rockets did last year, where they are, a top 5 defense and like the 20th best offense in the league as like the best case scenario for them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they're going to do it. It's going to be on the backs defensively. And for Scoot, this is the prove it year.
Yeah.
This is the prove it year. Like, he has to prove that he doesn't have to necessarily be absolutely amazing finished product, but he has to show throughout the course of the whole year of, like, I am capable of being that guy.
Yeah, that what he did the second half of the season is just the player he is now or better.
Right,
Best
exactly.
case scenario for Blazers fans is that at the end of this year, the Blazers want to extend Scoot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's Shaedon Sharpe is up for an extension right now. I don't think he's going to get it before October because I think as talent, and I think Shaedon's the most talented player on the roster as far as like the upside and the ceiling and what the best version of himself is, but he hasn't done it consistently enough, I think, for anybody to really be comfortable with them, giving him the type of money he'll probably want. So I think this is kind of a prove it year for Shaedon. But yeah, I think they would love to not. I mean, the Blazers' philosophy with this stuff is always that, like, they would, and we'll see if this changes under the new ownership, because I've heard that the Tom Dundon is kind of a strict negotiator and just like doesn't like paying people more than he thinks they should pay people. But this front office, as we've seen, as we saw with obviously the Jeremy Grant contract, it didn't really work out well. But for any of these guys, they are happy to pay. Whenever I've talked to them about, like, Tumani Kamara is, up for, could be up for a huge payday, like in a couple years, or like Denny Avdija is on this really team-friendly contract right now, but in a few years they're going to have to pay him a lot more if they want to keep him. The response I've always gotten is, we'd love to pay those guys that much money because they're worth it. So if the Blazers feel like Scoot is worth, if he makes enough of a leap in his third season that they think he's worth giving a big extension to, they're going to be happy to give it to him.
Let's have a little bit of fun here.
Sure.
Where are you on the Young Hansen type?
Well, Mo, you were in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
So you saw up close like how big of a phenomenon.
Let me put it to you this way, because I have I rub my head because just thinking about it, but I have Blazer fans in my life.
Sure. And
like, look, I love them. My favorite people, the most irrational people when it comes to their fandom. Right?
Oh, no question. I mean, every fan base kind of overhypes their own young guys or gets this kind of unrealistic.
No, this is to the moon. This is to the moon.
I know. Believe me, like I know.
Jokic is the Serbian young, so
that's like draft night.
Whoa, because our boy Jake Fisher tweeted that a Nuggets scout texted him that.
Yeah, and well, it's like, so like that becomes my entire group. That's my year. That
Sure.
is my group chat's coming season. I have the preview now from 20.
Oh, you think that's your year? Think about someone who actually covers.
No,
this
you have
thing.
to deal with the whole thing. It's gonna make me like be negative because they have to. They go so far. Like
Sure.
if I say, hey, he has nice shoes. Mo says they're winning the champion. It's like that kind of shit.
Right.
But like, where are you on the hype train?
I mean, I'm more excited to cover, whichever way it goes, I'm more excited to cover this than I pretty much have been to cover anything I've ever covered in my career, because this, like, I mean, you were in Vegas, so you saw what it was around him.
Yeah.
Like, how much Chinese media there was, how many, fans came from China to watch it. You saw the numbers of like 5 million people in China watched one of his Summer League games on CCTV. If you think about it, so there have only been 8 players born in China who have ever made it to the NBA. Who is the second best Chinese player ever in the NBA besides Yao?
Yi Jianlan?
Yeah, probably.
Like
Probably Yi Jianlan by default, and like he was a lottery pick, but he was only in the league for like 5 years. He never really did anything. So like the bar is so low for Hansen
He was in the league for a while too.
Yeah, but like the bar is pretty low. That like if Young Hansen has like Mason Plumlee's career, he's the second best Chinese player ever in the NBA.
Right.
And if he becomes an actual star, then that just takes it to a completely different level. So whichever way it goes, I'm really excited to cover it. And I've already started, I've already been like learning about like how Chinese fans view the NBA and just a lot of different, just learning a lot of different stuff. So it's kind of giving me some like different story. So just from my own like personal selfish, like my experience covering the team standpoint, I could not be more in on like being excited to see how it goes, whichever way it goes. As far as the actual on-court stuff, I mean, you saw enough at Summer League that you're like, okay, this is an NBA player. Like if you took away the names and you took away where anybody was projected to be drafted before the draft and how big of a reach it was kind of viewed as on draft night, if you just watched those first couple of Summer League games and they told you this is the Blazers' first round pick, this is who they took at 16, and you just watched it, you'd be like, yeah, this makes sense. This looks like an NBA player. This looks like a first round pick. So I think there's enough there that like they clearly saw something, and I've always been really interested in kind of learning about the scouting process, because like the CBA is just not a very well scouted league, and it's not a league that's very easy to scout. I actually know quite a bit about like how involved it was for them to even be able to get over there to scout him in person. So he's gonna play like right away. I think he's probably gonna like be in the rotation from opening night, because if you look at their center rotation, so they bought out DeAndre Ayton, so he's not there anymore. Robert Williams is just never healthy. Like, even if he does play, he's not going to play back-to-back. He's probably only going to play like 15, 20 minutes a night when he does play, and he has played 26 games over the 2 seasons that he's been in Portland, so you can't really count on him being a factor in anything. And then Duop Reith is kind of more of a, he's like a good, he's a good like pick-and-pop, like alternate option, but he's like not the type of guy that you can play in every matchup. He's kind of more of a situational guy. So it's really just Hansen and Klingen, who I would imagine is going to start opening night. It's really just those two that are probably the centers that are going to play every night. So he's going to get his opportunities. And I remember, like, at his introductory press conference after the draft, Chauncey Billups said that they don't view him as a project and they would feel comfortable putting him in the game right now. And then you looked at him at Summer League, and obviously there were some mistakes there, and there were some, there was some stuff with like the language and the cultural barriers that are going to take some time to get over. But he looked like he belonged out there against that competition. And, it's going to be a little bit more of a learning curve to adjust from, Summer League level of physicality to actual NBA level of physicality. I think there are going to be some rough spots, but I don't want to get out here and say, oh, I think this guy's going to be the next Jokic, or I think he's going to be an all-star. But, like, I think we've seen enough from Summer League from him that I think it's going to end up working out for him.
I'm very intrigued by the idea of 48 minutes of center play from two guys that are about as different at the center position as you can get.
Yeah.
Like, Klingen is just all defense all the time, basically a nothing on offense,
Yeah.
except for being able to finish around the rim. and then Hansen, who like is slinging passes from the elbow and in pick and rolls and whatnot. Like, it's interesting because you're going to have to figure out how to play very different ways, I think, when the two of them are on the court. And we've seen teams sort of struggle to do that when you build your offense in one way and then you have to play a different way because a certain player isn't on the court anymore. Granted, it's usually with like the best player in the league. Like, the Nuggets can't play the Jokic offense when Jokic isn't on the court. No LeBron team has been able to successfully play offense when LeBron's not on the court, or Steph team without Steph, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this is like a lower level version of that because you have this guy who's going to be basically all he can do is roll to the rim and finish at the basket and sit in the dunker spot. And then you have this other guy who has all this different offensive talent, but obviously is not nearly the same caliber of defender as the guy who you would hope can be the anchor of like a top 5 defense.
Well, like that's actually an advantage, to be honest, to be able to play multiple ways. It's a detriment to what you were saying, Jared. It's a detriment when it's your star player and you're screwed when he goes to your bench. When it's a guy that's going to be like, let's just be honest, at least starting out, he's going to be a role player.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be like that works for them because now we can kind of do some stuff. That also means, to be honest, don't be surprised we get double big lineups.
Actually, Chauncey outright said at the introductory press conference that he's not going to play them together.
Okay, well, Chauncey
said,
needs to give me a phone call. Him and I need to have a conversation because, like, this is actually kind of a nice little. It comes down to defensively, can they hold defensively, which is a big question mark. Well, but I still think you might see it at some point because it's going to matter.
Well, Hansen's rim protection at Summer League looked a little bit better than I kind of expected it to be, and he did win. I know it's not nearly the same level of competition, but he did win CBA Defensive Player of the Year his first year.
It's not
China.
the rim protection though. It's because Klingon can't guard in space.
No,
getting switched
not
on
at all.
Guard. So it's because in that situation when you're playing double big, one of the bigs has to be able to defend a little bit on the perimeter. That's more the question mark for Hansen. Which I from what I saw in Summer League, and it's hard to judge. I just wasn't.
Guys that are that big, it's hard to be fast enough and mobile enough to be able to do that. I do think, to your guys' point, and this is why I kind of pushed back. Like, after the draft, there were some people locally that were like, they just drafted centers in the first round 2 years in a row. How's that going to work? And it's like, A, they're very different players, like you guys said, and B, I mean, you look at all of the teams that have had playoff success, whether they play their two bigs together, they have. Like, you need to, if you're hypothetically in a playoff series against, a Jokic or a Wemby, you need more than one guy that size to throw at them. Like, when Dallas, the year they made the finals, they had Lively and Gafford. They, Oklahoma City has Hartenstein and Chet. Even if they don't necessarily play a lot together, like, having more than one guy that size, I don't think is a bad thing, especially like from a conditioning standpoint. Like, Klingon has, like Jared said, Klingon is already like a all defense level, rim protector. But Klingon's conditioning was a real issue last year, which, as you would expect it to be for somebody who's that big, who's adjusting from college physicality to NBA physicality, and he never really played more than 22 minutes a game at UConn. And so when he was kind of being asked to play a little bit more, he was getting up to like 26, 28 minutes a game kind of by the end of the season. It was a struggle for him. So it's not like, even if Klingon, I think, is going to be the starting center, and I think is like the guy that you know the most about as far as what he is in the NBA, he's not going to probably be able to play more than 26 or 28 minutes on a night-to-night basis. And so there's going to be plenty of minutes for everybody.
I don't know if you want Klingon playing more than that.
No, I don't think you do, and I think that's part of why they were motivated to draft another center.
I will say the guy, despite not playing in college, just totally dominated on defense whenever he was on the court. Ruined my night when I went to Houston to watch Miami against Houston in the Final Four. Like, the guy was on the court for like 12 minutes, and I think we scored 2 points the entire time he was on the court.
Yeah, he's
like, it was insane.
Yeah, he's incredible on that end. It's just the thing that I think is going to decide whether, he's like an elite starting center or just like a good starting center is whether anything ever comes around on the offensive end.
That'll be the key.
Conditioning too, to be able to stay on the court for that long. Like, that's obviously a big thing. Like, if you're a guy who can only play 22 to 26 minutes a night, it's hard to ever be more than like a rotational center, no matter how good you are
Uh-huh.
in those minutes.
Yeah.
All right, that's been a lot of Blazers talk. We got Sean. We made it. We
All right.
Author of the Rose Garden Report. We wanted to make sure
Go subscribe.
Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're following him on all socials. You're not going to get more in-depth coverage of the Blazers than from Sean. Sean's going to stick around because Jared has like complaints.
All right. Let's go. I think everybody's got complaints.
First, or do we want to talk about something good first? We could talk about John Wall.
We should have talked John Wall. I also, in all fairness and transparency, I forgot we had John Wall on the rundown, and I just went straight to Jared's complaint. Let's go John Wall first.
Yeah, we can end the show with my complaints because that seems fitting. But John Wall, man, like John Wall's retiring. He is joining Amazon Prime's broadcast team for the season. I feel like just a retrospective and like admiring the player that he was at his peak is deserved.
Are you gonna Dougie?
That dude was so much fun to watch. The fastest dude in the league with the ball in his hands. One of the guys who, like me, is a lefty that plays basketball righty. One of the smartest players on the court. The defining image for me is always like him sprinting out into the open floor with like Brad Beal and another shooter flanking him, sprinting to the corners, and him just leaning one way very quickly and then firing the ball to the opposite corner for a corner three. He was like the best corner three creator in the league for a few years. Such a smart passer, obviously like explosive athlete, just electrifying in the open court. Was finally developing like his mid-range jumper game, and then everything starts happening with his health and his knees and the Supermax contract that gets he gets called overrated because he wasn't worth that contract when really he was just overpaid because the way the league is set up, you basically have to give your best player that contract. But man, that guy was good, and man, he was fun to watch, and I'm sad that his career is over, but I'm happy we're going to get to see him on TV.
Yeah, like it sucks because he was so fun before the injuries, right? Like everything about John Wall was fun. The Wizards had a fun and exciting team with him and Bradley Beal, and there were playoff battles and things that we had. And then it all went to downhill so quickly. And then it's also the Washington Wizards. Like the way the Wizards organization kind of handles everything after that is just disastrous. And I think it's sucks his career ends this way. But like you were saying, Jared, like, dude, he had a run where it was like, yo, we got to watch John Wall. Like, this dude can play. Freaking fast as hell, was fun for basketball, great for the NBA. I still remember him jumping up on the scores table after hitting a game winner. Like, we had a lot of fun memories from him with the Wizards. It's a little bit sad that it's over kind of quick, but it also felt like we never got peak John Wall. Like, we never got to that level because of the injuries.
John Wall is going to be one of those guys. I think the three of us are all kind of around the same age. This is going to be one of these things that makes all of us feel really old, where it's like the younger generation already of like people that we see on social media are going to be like, oh, what's the big deal? John Wall, he never like won anything, whatever. He's going to be one of those guys that like maybe like Nick Van Exel was for somebody who's like, and I think John Wall's a better player than Nick Van Exel, but like somebody like that who was like, you know, not like a superstar for like a long time, but like the younger, like the people who are like a little bit older than us are like, no, you guys don't understand how good this guy was in his prime. That's going to be us with John Wall. We're going to be like, yeah, you know, the injuries, you know, cut short his prime, and like he never got to the finals, never won a championship, all that stuff. But you guys don't understand how good he was at the beginning before he had the injuries, when he, you know, those first few years with the Wizards, and even like that, you know, that year that he had at Kentucky, and it was like I don't think, like, people who are younger than us, I think, are not going to understand it. But it's going to be one of those things where you kind of had to be there.
Yeah, Sean
That's
just
exactly
said young people suck.
You had to be there.
Yep.
Like and really that Wizards team, they only had like 2 playoff series wins, I think.
Yeah.
And they had that awesome 7-game series against the Celtics that was incredible. And then the Kentucky team with him and Boogie Cousins and Eric Bledsoe, and all those other guys, like in that draft where he's the number 1 pick. And like I remember coming into the summer of what's that, 2011, right? 2010, 2011, 2010, where it was like all these guys are free agents. what if one team gets the number 1 pick, and then you can say, we got the number 1 pick, and maybe LeBron wants to come play with John Wall. That was like very briefly a thing.
I
like,
remember
what if
that,
the Knicks
yeah.
get the number 1 pick, and they can get John Wall. Like, that's how good he was or that's how good people thought he was going to be when he was coming into the league. And then he was like starting to live up to the hype of the hype. And then, it all comes crashing down from there, unfortunately, for reasons mostly outside of his control. But you definitely had to be there. And like, this dude made the Wizards worth watching. They're still not worth watching, like, a decade later.
The Wizards as a franchise has not won 50 games since the late 70s.
And they did win 49 one year with him, I think.
Yeah, and they won playoff series a couple of times, one of which was against the Bulls, my first year covering the Bulls in the 13-14 season. This was like when the Bulls were playing with like a skeleton crew.
The 17th season when they had that series against the Celtics, they won 49 games, which is their most since like the 70s.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now, Jared, this is my favorite part of the podcast. Jared, complain away.
Yeah. It's killing me, guys, because as everyone knows, I live on the East Coast, Mo lives on the West Coast. NBC this season on Tuesday nights is doing what they're calling something like coast to coast, and the late games are starting not at 10 o'clock East Coast time, not at 10:30 East Coast time, but 11 o'clock East Coast time. These games are going to end at the earliest. If they start exactly on time, they're going to end at 1:30 in the morning on the East Coast. If they start on time, which never, ever, ever happens. If these games are starting at like 11:22 on the East Coast, we're going to be up until 2 in the morning watching basketball. This is insanity. We do not need to start games this late. It's total bullshit. The NBA is trying to kill me. Like, I already don't get enough sleep. And now they're doing this on Tuesday nights for the entire year. There's 18 or 19 of these games that are going to be going on at 11 o'clock at night. It's nonsense. I'm not here for it. We need to start these games at least an hour earlier.
The Blazers have like 4 or 5 home NBC games that are 8 p.m. local start times. I'm not happy about it.
Okay. First off, I understand it for you, Sean, because that also means how late you're going to be working into after the press conferences, things like that. Are the players notoriously slow in Portland to get out to the press conference?
You know what? Since it's all young guys who don't know how to be veterans that are avoiding the media yet, it's actually not that bad. But like back when I was in Chicago, like Jimmy Butler and Dwayne Wade would take an hour after.
Right.
I was about to say, because I know you know how long he took to. Imagine if Carmelo was still on the team. And how long you have to wait for these 11
Melo took forever. I mean, I think it was a little bit better in Portland than it was in New York or wherever else, because I think at that point Melo was like so just grateful to be back in the league that he was more willing to be like, okay, So it wasn't quite as bad as it was in New York, but he definitely was not on the faster side.
I will say Carmelo would stay until literally everybody had 0 questions left.
Yeah.
But it did take forever for him to come into the locker room to talk.
I loved covering Melo. I really enjoyed the half a season that I got to know him personally before COVID hit. He was phenomenal to cover.
So I'm just going to say this, and I apologize to Sean. I don't apologize to Jared. I don't give a fuck that it's with this time with the East Coasters. Oh no! Do you know how hard it is for me to get to the start of games that start at 4 p.m. here on the West Coast? We never consider the West Coast when it comes to times of games and things like that.
There are no 4 p.m. West Coast games that
there are
no.
Not that are being played in L.A. or Portland.
First off, there are times where try to get to a Laker game at 7 p.m. in L.A. Okay, that ain't happening. No, but I'm just saying in general, it's just traffic. 8 actually makes sense for us in LA. It's easier for us across the board. And the only thing I'd say, and this is the most important thing to me with NBC and with Amazon, don't take the 20 minutes. Don't tell me the game starts at 8 and it starts at 8:22. Don't do what ESPN does with their start times at because that's where it's the killer. because we don't need that 20-minute start the game at 8:05. Like, that's my biggest complaint. That's my biggest concern with all of this stuff. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit later. Okay, but we're so used to national TV games starting later than it's supposed to anyways. If they start it closer to 8, you're not going to feel that much of a difference. And most importantly, most of y'all on the East Coast don't even watch.
Whoa. Let's
you do, but most of y'all on the East Coast don't.
I'm staying up way too late. It's ridiculous. I'm, going to be 40 in a couple of years. Like, I can't be doing this for the next however many years that NBC.
I can't wait till you're 40 and you do the Mike Gundy rant.
If Jared is this washed before he hits 40, imagine what it's going to be like once he actually hits 40.
You guys both know this. My body doesn't work right. I've been 75 since I was 30. so like it's becoming a problem already. But I will say, when I'm president, if you start games that are listed at 8 o'clock, after 8 o'clock, jail. Right to jail.
Oh,
like
I'm fine with that.
Of Fred Armisen being like, you undercook chicken, jail. You overcook fish, jail. Overcook, undercook, jail. If you start games at 8 o'clock, not at 8 o'clock, right to jail.
There you
That's
go.
how it should be.
I don't mind this. Now, granted, I also, when I go to the games and cover the games, I don't have to stay for the press conferences. I don't have that in what I got to work on. That's optional for me and that stuff. So I get where Sean gets screwed. I understand, Jared, your precious sleep. Let's just be honest. You wasn't going to sleep at that time anyways. Let's not act like you were going to get a good night's rest all of a sudden if the game started at 7:30.
Though it's an extra hour. It's I'm.
It's
Not
a
that
half
I need
hour.
any beauty sleep, but I do need some sleep.
That's enough complaining, I guess, with all that stuff. Sean, plug what you got coming up next on the Rose Garden Report. Excuse me. I'm sorry. It's
So I'm doing a series right now for the last 6 weeks of the off season, and I know this is an original concept that's never been ever done by anybody else before. But I'm counting down the top 25 of something of the last 25 years. I know that's like new ground that I'm breaking. Nobody's ever thought of that before. But the way I'm doing it, what I'm doing is, instead of doing like, the top 25 Blazers players of the last 25 years, I didn't do that because it's like, okay, yeah, Dame's number one. Like, what do I have to say about it that's interesting? What I'm doing instead is I am counting down the top 25 individual Blazers player games, like performances of the last 25 years, but I'm limiting it to one per player. So there's only one Dame game on the list, only one LaMarcus game on the list, only one CJ game on the list, and that allows me to kind of, for lack of a better term, remember some guys. Right. So that's been fun. That's started rolling out this week. That's going to roll out every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the next 5 weeks after this until we get to training camp. And then, in between that, I've been covering, the ownership stuff. I'm obviously, once camp starts, there's going to be a ton to cover. The WNBA expansion team is still kind of getting rolled out ahead of next summer. I've been covering that as well. So just go to rosegardenreport.com and subscribe, sign up, support. Paid subscribers get a lot more content. It's kind of, it's a similar type of thing to what Jared does, more on a national level. So, that's just kind of where I'd tell people to go.
There you go. Jared, what you got coming up on last night in basketball? Besides complaining about 8 p.m. starts.
I'm working on something that I'm hopefully going to be able to have soon that I don't want to say too much about yet. But then I'll also be getting started on the season preview stuff either next week or the week after, of 3 Things NBA preview, where 3 things that I am curious about, looking forward to, want to see, wondering about every single team in the league. I'll be running through each division in the 6 weeks before the season starts. So get started on that, because once we get to September, there's 6 weeks until the season starts. It's pretty wild.
It's going to be here quick. It's going to be here quick, guys.
It's going to be here super quick. And then please, subscribe to the podcast. This is on YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple, whatever else you get your podcasts. But definitely subscribe, resubscribe, unsubscribe. Mo said that helps us out, but I'm still skeptical, but do it anyway. And
pump the numbers up.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, and make sure you guys check out the videos I'm doing on Offside. It's Join Offside on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, all that fun stuff. Check all those stuff out. We got a lot of videos coming across the board from a lot of different people, myself included. And Jared and I will be back when there's NBA news, folks. Like, this one came a little bit late. We're at the point where we have no idea what's happening with restricted free agency. Those four dudes are just twisting in the wind. And after that, there's been no other news to talk about. So when we have news, we'll be back. Thank you for listening to the Double Dribble.
Yeah, this week we had to wait until a guy who hasn't played in 3 years retired in order to have something to do a podcast on. So hopefully that there's some more news between now and this time next week. And yeah, like Mo said, we'll be back. And Sean, thanks so much for doing this, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Above the ball. Above the ball.